shocking new evidence is puzzling astronomers worldwide. Mysterious interstellar visitor 3I Atlas behaves unlike any comet seen before.
I've got something to show you even you have never seen.
What if the first real warning about 3I Atlas didn't come from NASA today, but from someone who once guided its science from the inside? As the strange object brightened too fast, rotated in odd rhythms, and released jets no one expected.
So I want to point this out specifically because I find it as a very important finding. And so as a member of the International UFO Bureau,
a former NASA chief scientist stepped forward with a claim that sent shock through the space community. He said the signs were too unusual to ignore and that 3I Atlas may be hiding something far more serious than anyone has admitted. The warning no one expected. From the moment Dr. Gregory Rogers shared his finding, the tone around 3I Atlas changed. This was not an influencer stirring hype or an outsider reading rumors. This was a former NASA chief scientist and senior flight surgeon speaking from decades of experience, and his message placed 3I Atlas at the center of a growing storm. According to his analysis, the object was displaying a pattern of changes that made no sense for a natural comet. He explained that its sudden brightening, its unusual rotation rhythm, and the way its coma expanded ahead of schedule were signs that something deeper was happening. His words immediately linked to the title, NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3I Atlas, because he was not claiming a simple anomaly. He was suggesting that the behavior of 3I Atlas demanded urgent and serious attention. He noted that normal comets brighten near the sun, but 3I Atlas brightened far too quickly, rising faster than the models predicted, and doing so at a distance where that kind of surge should be impossible. Astronomers worldwide had watched 3I Atlas grow more active as it neared perihelion, but his interpretation pushed the conversation into a new chapter. He argued that the object's behavior showed signs of complex physical processes, something layered, something influenced by more than sunlight alone. He pointed directly to its expanding coma and rising gas levels as hints that internal shifts were happening long before they should. These early changes tied back to the larger concern. If 3I Atlas continued acting outside the normal playbook, then scientists needed to prepare for more surprises ahead. The brightening that broke every rule. The second wave of concern came when Dr. Gregory Rogers focused on what he called the most alarming part of 3I Atlas so far, its rapid brightening. He explained that comets follow a predictable rhythm as they approach the sun. Ices warm, gases escape, and brightness increases slowly and steadily. But 3I Atlas refused to follow that path. It brightened faster than any model expected, rising at a rate that shocked both ground telescopes and deep space observers. This was the point where his statement truly connected with the title, NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3I Atlas, because he was saying directly that this behavior did not match any comet he had worked with before. The object was still far from the sun when the spike began. At that distance, sunlight is too weak to create such strong activity, yet the brightness curve shot upward as if something inside the object had switched on. He pointed out that the coma around 3I Atlas expanded at the same time, swelling into a shape far larger than expected. Comets only show such growth when heated aggressively, but here it was happening early, without a clear source of heat. His interpretation was blunt. Either 3I Atlas held unusual chemicals near its surface, capable of reacting at colder temperatures, or something inside the object was changing in ways that standard science had not prepared for. The rotation pattern that should not exist. Dr. Gregory Rogers continued raising alarms when he examined how 3I Atlas was rotating. According to him, The object wasn't spinning like a tumbling comet at all. Most interstellar visitors rotate unevenly, wobbling from past collisions or from uneven gas jets pushing on their surface. But 3I Atlas showed a clean, steady rhythm, almost like a controlled turn. This precise rotation was one of the reasons his analysis was viewed as a bombshell, tying directly back to NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3IATLAS. He noted that the light curve revealed a repeating cycle, repeating every few hours with surprising stability. It didn't drift, jitter, or shift. Instead, the peaks and dips matched cleanly, as if the object were balanced from within. He called this one of the most suspicious findings because natural comets rarely maintain such order. Once they heat up, their jets usually distort rotation or cause unpredictable swings. But 3I Atlas held its rhythm as if locked into place. What troubled him more was what happened next. As the comet brightened, its rotation should have changed. Gas escapes usually act like tiny thrusters, pushing a comet into a new spin. But 3I Atlas resisted that change. Its rotation continued in the same smooth pattern even as its coma expanded and new jets formed. To him, this meant one thing. Something inside the object was heavier, stronger, or more stable than models assumed. This claim fed directly into rising concern. If 3I Atlas was stable enough to maintain its spin under intense outgassing, then its interior was unusual, possibly layered with material that did not melt or fracture easily. And if that stability held as it moved closer to the sun, then the next stages of its journey could reveal even stranger behavior. The jets that looked too organized. Dr. Gregory Rogers drew even more attention when he turned to the jets bursting from 3I Atlas. Comets usually release gas in chaotic streams as sunlight warms random patches of ice. These jets twist, fade, flare, and shift without order. But the jets coming from 3I Atlas looked nothing like that. They appeared in patterns, rising from broad regions instead of small vents, almost as if the object were releasing material in waves rather than bursts. This was another moment that fully matched the title. NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3IATLAS because he warned that these jets were not behaving like normal comet jets at all. He pointed out that the jets fired at nearly equal angles, forming a faint symmetry inside the coma. As scientists enhanced images, they noticed thin streaks curving outward in layered shapes, each one spaced apart, like pulses frozen in space. These jets were too smooth, too consistent, and too aligned to match the messy behavior expected from a natural body heating up. Even more alarming was the timing. The jets turned on long before the comet reached the distance where such activity should occur. There simply wasn't enough sunlight to drive such strong outgassing. To Dr. Rogers, this meant the jets were powered by something else, something deep inside the object. He noted that the early jets lined up with the sudden brightening he had already warned about, meaning the core might be under internal stress or undergoing chemical shifts that did not depend on external heat. He also highlighted how the jets did not cause the rotation to wobble. Normally, strong gas jets push a comet into irregular motion, causing its spin to chain. But 3I Atlas stayed steady, as if the internal mass was absorbing the recoil. This raised the possibility that the jets were releasing gases from beneath a hardened shell instead of exploding directly from soft ice. Such behavior suggested structure, layers, and a deep reservoir of material waiting to escape. The spin that should not be possible. Another part of Dr. Gregory Rogers' warning focused on the rotation of 3I Atlas, and this is where the bombshell grew even harder to ignore. Every natural comet ever studied wobbles as it spins. Jets erupt unevenly, the surface warms in patches, mass shifts, and the entire body begins to tumble in unpredictable ways. But 3I Atlas refused to behave like that. Its rotation stayed smooth, balanced, and almost unnaturally steady. Dr. Rogers explained that when a comet releases large amounts of gas, the escaping material acts like tiny rocket thrusters. Even a gentle jet can nudge the comet's direction or alter its spin. But despite the strong outgassing already confirmed by telescopes, 3I Atlas did not change its rotation at all. The stability of this interstellar object was so precise that it looked engineered or reinforced. This is exactly why the title, NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3IATLAS, kept ringing through every part of his analysis. Nothing about this stability was normal. He went on to highlight that the rotation rhythm matched the faint pulses that astronomers picked up in the infrared spectrum. Every time the object completed a spin, its coma brightened slightly, like a heartbeat echoing through space. The timing was too perfect, the brightness spikes were too consistent, and the correlation was too exact to dismiss as chance. Natural comets rotate with uneven patterns because of surface bumps, fractures, and uneven heating. But 3I Atlas rotated like a single smooth mass, as if its core were dense and unified instead of porous and fragile. That kind of stability would require enormous strength or internal structure far beyond the loose rubble piles that normal comets are made of. The brightening event that terrified astronomers. Dr. Gregory Rogers' sixth warning focused on what he called one of the most alarming signs yet from 3I Atlas, the sudden and violent brightening event that took place ahead of its perihelion. This was not a minor increase in light. It was a dramatic surge that astronomers recorded across multiple observatories, and it forced scientists to reconsider everything they thought they understood about this interstellar object. This brightening did not behave like a natural outburst. Most comets brighten gradually as they heat. Some flare up due to localized surface collapse or gas venting, but 3I Atlas brightened in a way that seemed controlled rather than chaotic. The rise in luminosity followed a nearly smooth curve, suggesting a large-scale internal process instead of random surface activity. This is where the title, NASA's former chief scientist, drops a bombshell on 3IATLAS became unavoidable again because Dr. Rogers stressed that this type of brightening made no physical sense for a normal comet. He explained that typical comets brighten when water begins to sublimate, but in 3I Atlas, water was barely detected. Instead, carbon dioxide dominated the emissions by a factor of 8:1. CO2 sublimates at much lower temperatures than water, meaning the brightening should have happened earlier, not suddenly. The timing was off, the magnitude was off, and the consistency was off. The color shifts that should not exist. Dr. Gregory Rogers then turned to one of the strangest and most public anomalies linked to 3I Atlas, the repeated and dramatic color changes recorded across multiple telescopes. These shifts were not subtle. The object changed color 3 separate times within a month, shifting between shades of blue, green, and white. For a natural comet, such a rapid transformation is unheard of. For an interstellar object, it was a shock. And once again, this lined up fully with the title, NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3IATLAS. Rogers emphasized that a comet's color is determined by the gases and dust it releases. Cyanogen glows blue, diatomic carbon glows green, magnesium and sodium glow white or yellow, but these emissions depend on temperature and distance from the sun. They follow predictable sequences. Yet 3I Atlas did not follow any known sequence at all. It behaved as if its chemical layers were arranged in a way no scientist had ever seen. The first shift came far from the sun, where temperatures were too cold for typical cyanogen-driven blue emission. The second included a burst of green light that did not match the expected sublimation timeline. The third returned to an icy white corona, even as the comet should have been heating further. Rogers explained that these color patterns looked patterned, not random, and he compared them to geological layers being exposed in timed intervals rather than chaotic eruptions. Some observatories also detected nickel emissions without iron, which should be impossible in nature, since both metals condense together in supernovae. The color shifts lined up with these metal anomalies, suggesting an internal structure arranged in distinct zones rather than a mixed interior like ordinary comets. The heat patterns. that point to a hidden structure. Dr. Gregory Rogers then focused on another discovery that tied all the other anomalies together: the heat distribution inside the coma of 3I Atlas. Using advanced infrared data, astronomers created thermal maps of the object, expecting to see random hotspots caused by uneven sunlight. Instead, they found something that made NASA researchers pause. The heat formed a clear geometric pattern showing 3 warm regions arranged at almost perfect angles around the nucleus. This thermal symmetry was not the kind of behavior seen in natural comets, and once again matched the gravity of the title. NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3I Atlas. Rogers explained that natural comets heat up in patches, depending on surface bumps, cracks, and shadowing. The hot areas should be messy and irregular, but 3I Atlas produced heat signatures that looked almost engineered. Even more strange was the consistency. Every time the object rotated, the warm regions returned in the same alignment relative to the coma. This suggested that the heat was not just a surface phenomenon, but something coming from inside the object. Scientists began to suspect that the internal layers of 3I Atlas might be arranged in a structured lattice or crystalline formation similar to processed materials rather than natural rubble. Rogers pointed out that the thermal pattern did not change even during strong outgassing events. If jets were ripping material from the surface, the heat map should have shifted, but it stayed fixed as if the interior had rigid zones distributing heat evenly. That kind of stability hinted at high density or reinforced internal construction traits never associated with interstellar natural bodies. The cosmic ray signature that suggests an impossible past. Dr. Gregory Rogers then highlighted one of the most unsettling clues hidden in the scientific papers circulating among astronomers: the cosmic ray processing signature found in the chemical makeup of 3I Atlas. According to a preprint study, the molecule ratios inside the coma showed evidence of being altered by billions of years of exposure to high-energy galactic cosmic rays. That alone was not unusual for an ancient interstellar object. But what shocked researchers was the degree and pattern of the alteration. The cosmic ray damage did not appear random or uniform. Instead, it formed layered gradients, almost like rings inside the object, each one showing a different era of exposure. Natural comets do not store cosmic ray signatures this neatly. They tumble through space, their surfaces erode, layers mix, and any cosmic ray record becomes chaotic. But 3I Atlas held its history in clean, preserved bands. Once again, this lined up directly with the theme of NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3I Atlas, because the more Rogers read the data, the more it suggested something extraordinary had shaped the object before it ever reached our solar system. He explained that cosmic rays normally penetrate only a few meters into a comet's surface, but the chemical signatures in 3I Atlas suggested that its deeper layers had also been processed, as if the material had been reorganized or resurfaced repeatedly across cosmic time. Neither interpretation matched any known natural process for comet evolution. Even stranger, the cosmic ray-processed molecules aligned perfectly with the color shift cycles, strengthening the idea that each layer being exposed was not just random ice melting, but a deeper structure revealing itself in sequence. The breakup mystery near the sun that raised even bigger questions. The final warning from Dr. Gregory Rogers focused on the most dramatic event yet linked to 3I Atlas, the suspected fragmentation near the sun, reported by several observatories after its perihelion. In late October 2025, telescopes detected brief fluctuations in brightness and unusual distortions in the comet's coma, suggesting that parts of the object may have broken off or shifted. But the nature of this breakup did not match any known pattern seen in natural comets. Once again, the analysis matched the gravity of the title. NASA's former chief scientist drops a bombshell on 3I Atlas because Dr. Rogers emphasized that even the breakup of this object seemed governed by rules unlike anything astronomers expected. In a normal comet, fragmentation happens when rapid heating causes the nucleus to crack. Large pieces shear away, dust clouds expand, and the object becomes unstable. But in the case of 3I Atlas, the observations showed something far stranger. Instead of chaotic shattering, the distortions looked organized, as if layers peeled or shifted in controlled sections rather than exploding outward. Some astronomers described it as a structured collapse. These distortions also lined up with the triangle-shaped heat pattern identified earlier. The same three regions that showed warm signatures were the locations where the coma changed shape most dramatically. This suggested that the internal structure of 3I Atlas had specific stress points, possibly linked to its rotation cycle. Even more puzzling was the recovery. Within the day, the object appeared stable again. Its rotation remained precise. Its brightness returned to a steady level. A natural comet undergoing such stress would wobble or shed debris for weeks. But 3I Atlas seemed to self-correct, maintaining its trajectory without measurable, non-gravitational acceleration. The most unsettling theory came from the researchers studying its signals. They noted that the suspected breakup event coincided with a spike in the faint infrared pulses, the same pulses that repeated in perfect rhythm with the rotation. To them, the timing looked deliberate, as if the internal processes responded to the sudden stress. No one could say for certain whether 3I Atlas fractured or simply shed an outer layer, but everyone agreed on one thing. The event did not behave like a natural comet tearing itself apart. It behaved like something adjusting, and that was the final moment that convinced Dr. Rogers that 3I Atlas was no ordinary interstellar visitor. Every anomaly, the brightening, the rotation, the heat, the jets, the colors, and now the controlled breakup pushed the object further into unknown territory. He warned that if we truly wanted answers, the scientific community would have to treat 3I Atlas not as a comet, but as something entirely different, possibly ancient, possibly engineered, possibly still active. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.